Hi everyone, and welcome to week 4 of our Sweet Childhood Memories Sew Along, hosted by Pat Sloan at her website ilovetomakequilts.com. My name's Kendall and I'm here to show you how to do it. We start as we do every week, folks, with all of our pieces cut out. This week again I'm making a slight alteration and doing the small half square triangles 8 at a time because we do need 8 of them. To get started this week, however, we'll make our large half square triangles, and we do this by drawing a diagonal line on the back of our fabric, putting it together right sides together with our other piece of fabric, sewing 1/4 inch on each side of this drawn line. We then slash it along this drawn line, press to the dark side and trim down. I prefer to trim down my half square triangles 2 at a time as I'm impatient and this is just a little bit quicker for me. So to trim down my half square triangles, I nest those seams together nice and tight. I prefer to use my 6.5 inch square ruler. I line the diagonal on the stitching line and I make sure there's enough fabric outside the required trim down size. On all 4 edges, I trim down 2 edges. I then rotate the block. I place my measurement against the freshly trimmed edges and trim the final 2 sides. It's now time to move on to our small half square triangles, and as I said at the beginning, I am choosing to make these 8 at a time because we need 8. To make the 8 at a time half square triangles, I'm beginning today with a 6.25 inch square cut of both fabrics that are required. On the back of one of the fabrics, I have drawn a diagonal line in both directions from corner to corner, and we need to start by stitching 1/4 inch on each side of both of these drawn lines. With our stitching now done, it is time to cut this block apart, and we need to do this first by dissecting it both horizontally and vertically in the middle. Because we started with a 6.25 inch square, we need to line up our 3 1/8 mark and cut it vertically, and then line this mark up again and cut it horizontally. Finally, we can cut along our drawn lines, which gives us our 8 half square triangle units, which we then need to just press to the dark side and trim down. The smaller half square triangle units need to be trimmed to a measurement of 2.5 inches, and the process is the same as mentioned earlier. I'll pop a card in the top right hand corner of the screen and in the description box below to my detailed half square triangles 2 at a time. At this point in the process, folks, I do actually vary from what is in the pattern, and as I was making this, I just went ahead and sewed it the way my brain saw it coming together. So you can either follow along with me here, where I start with making the pinwheel in the center. I then sew the side strips and I have to attach those using a partial seam, or you could follow the pattern and make each corner unit as per the instructions there, and finally sew it together as a 4-patch. So if you're here with me for my version, I'm starting by making the pinwheel. I'm going to press both of these to one side, and then I can spin the center seam. As I pressed these, I made sure that these two seams were going in opposing directions so that I could nest them here, which will help us with the spinning of the seam in just a moment. With that seam now sewn, I've zoomed the camera in a little bit here so that you can see what I'm doing to twist this center seam and make it lay nice and flat. We do have 8 pieces of fabric coming together here. And to spin the seam effectively, we just need to pick out the few little stitches which are above our stitching line, give the block a little bit of a twist, and then we make sure that all of our seam allowances are going in the same direction, either anti-clockwise or clockwise, and then we give it an all-over press, and this should result in a little pinwheel being made in the middle here. Now we just need to press our seams in these directions, and you will find that your block will lay nice and flat. It's now time for us to create our side sections, and to do this we need to sew our 2 half square triangles together and make 4 sets of 2, and then add our long strip to those to create all 4 pieces that we need for the sides. The pressing direction here is optional, so just press to whichever side you think best, but after adding the long strip to the side of these, we will press towards the long strip, as that will be the path of least resistance. We now need to attach all 4 sides to our center pinwheel, and as I said at the beginning, we need to do this using a partial seam. So what you see me doing here is lining my piece up, and there where we have our seams opposing, we're going to pop a pin. Now, all we're going to do is sew from the top edge where the half square triangles are and go just past that halfway point, do a few back stitches, and leave it at that to move to the next piece. As you can see here, folks, I have not sewn this the whole way across, and I've stopped just after the half square triangles, and this is why we call it a partial seam. I'm now just going to finger press this out away from the pinwheel, and we now have a full length going counterclockwise for our next edge piece to be added. We can add that piece now, making sure to nest our seam on the pinwheel, and we'll do this for the next 3 sides, and then we'll finish off our partial seam. It's now time to complete our partial seam, and this is done just like any other. So we'll just flip that back as you saw me do there. We'll sew from the other end with our 1/4 of an inch, and where we stopped in the middle before, we'll just do another little back stitch, and that will complete this partial seam. After giving this a final press, the block for this week is done. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed these videos and you got something out of them. Please remember, if you haven't done so already, like the video, share it with a friend, hit the subscribe button, but most importantly, tickle the little bell icon so you'll be notified of all my upcoming releases. As always, bye for now.